Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Holly Menninger, and I'm the Director of Public Engagement and Science Learning at the Bell Museum. Thank you so much for joining us online today for a conversation with the Bell Museum's Curator of Plants and an Assistant Professor in the Department of Plant and Microbial Biology, Dr. Ya Yang. Welcome, Ya.
Hi, everyone.
Ya and her research group study plant evolution, asking questions about how plant species relate to each other and how certain groups of plants evolve the ability to survive in harsh places like deserts and mountaintops. Ya and colleagues recently received funding from the National Science Foundation to pursue a new collaborative research project all about plant chemistry. I have quite a few questions for Ya today to get us started, but I hope you will also chime in and join the conversation by typing in your questions in the chat box below. So let's get things started. Welcome, Ya. Can you tell us about what it means to be a curator of plants at the Bell Museum? What does a curator do?
So as a curator, I oversee the scientific collection. So I make sure that the collection is well kept, and I also make sure that it's used in teaching, research. I also diversify the collection, which means I do some collection myself, and I also ID some of the collection specimens collected here. I don't really do a lot of the day-to-day management, which is here done by collection manager, curatorial assistants, and a team of students and volunteers.
Excellent. So you're not coming to us from your home office like I am today. You're coming to us from a very special place. Can you tell us about where you are right now?
So this is our herbarium, which is located on the 8th floor of the Biological Sciences building. If you don't know where it is, when you're standing at the Bell Museum building, the tallest building around, it is us. We're on the 8th floor. So the entire 8th floor mostly belong to the herbarium, which has many of these cases. I can tilt it a little bit around. It's a pretty big room that was almost 1 million specimens here. So this is our herbarium.
And there's a cabinet open behind you. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about like what I think there's shelves in there. What are in those cabinets and on those shelves?
Right. So in each of those cabinets, as you can see a little bit, you have a lot of these specimen folders. They're all like this. So each of specimen folders have specimens in them. So what does specimen look like? So here is an example of our specimen. I have to handle it really carefully because these are dried plants. So as you can see, this is a plant, this is a pokeweed plant that we typically collect some leaves and some flower and fruit parts. And in the bottom, as you can see, we'll always have the label information, which record who collected, where it's collected, and GPS location, and just information like this. So this is not all plants can be pressed flat like this. For example, some of the plants I study that live in desert, for example, cacti. Those plants are 3D. They don't want to go flat. So what we typically do for plants like this is to slice them up so that you can see, slice them up and make them fit into a typical herbarium sheet like that. So this is how we do with a lot of these succulent plants. However, there's other plants that really don't like to be sliced, such as picon like this. So we basically put them in Ziploc bags or boxes like this and put a label in them and just put this whole thing into a cabinet like that. So this is a quick demonstration of what our specimen look like.
That's fantastic. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about how plant collections like those in the herbarium are important to the kind of research that you do. How do you use those collections?
Collections can be used in many different ways. Just to give you an example, for example, in order to look into plant chemistry adaptation, I do need to go to the wild, sometimes really remote areas, to collect live plants. But how do I know where they are and how to find them? So nowadays, there are all these thousands of herbariums all over the world. They will digitize their herbarium specimen and put them online. So first thing I do is to look into these online databases and books and floras to narrow down where I should go collect and apply for permit and buy a plane ticket and rent a car. And once I go there, the first thing I do is to go talk to the herbarium curator in that local place, who will give me hints at where to look for plants, and also actually look at the physical plant specimen to make sure they're correctly identified, get additional detail, location information before I head out to the wild, right? So after collecting, I would do my research, do my DNA analysis and everything else. And then afterwards, I always collect the voucher specimen, which means I collect a separate plant part, just like what I show you, and press it and make a specimen and permanently deposit into a herbarium. So that later on, after my research is finished, published, people can always come in and double check the specimen and know that I got the ID correct, the location is what they're expecting. If there's any mistake, people can always go back to the specimen and correct it.
Very cool. How many specimens have you contributed to the Bell Museum Herbarium? Do you keep a tally sheet?
I do. I'm still relatively new, but throughout my grad school and postdoc, probably around 1,000 in the past. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite specimen or one that you're most proud of, whether it was something that was really hard to get or that it represents something really special?
Yeah, some of my favorite specimens are some of those species we realize it's undescribed species. For example, a number of years ago, we took a trip to northern Mexico, which is not that far across the border. But because of a number of reasons, it's very poorly collected. So we're one of the few botanists who ever collected there. The moment I opened the cart door, I realized this is a new species and never been described before, because it's closely related to some of the group of plants that I studied for my dissertation. So we did some in-depth collection and aim at actually describe it. So some of these are definitely my favorite species. But actually describing as a new species take a lot of time to actually get all the details. So that's still something on the pipeline.
Gotcha. What was your path to science? How did you become a botanist?
So I grew up in Beijing, China, which, as many of you know, it's a humongous city of 22 million people nowadays. So I grew up in the city with cars and tall buildings. But when I was, I think, 7th grade, I got this chance to go for a summer camp that is organized by university professors and grad students. They took us to a research station 3 hours away from Beijing in the mountains. There are people who know a lot about plants, insects, and other nature things. And it's a week long. I loved it. And I love it so much, I went back every single year. And some of my favorite instructors are these botanists in that group. So I went to college, majoring in biology, and mostly aiming at going as a botanist. And the other thing that really struck me as a child was my aunt is a doctor specialized in Chinese herbal medicine. And in summer vacations, she would take me to places and she knows everything. I feel like she can almost talk to plants. She's amazing. And when I get sick, had stomach issues, she would go out and grab some plants and make something and fix me. It's just amazing. So yeah, so this indigenous plant knowledge is super amazing. That's something that also had quite an impact on me.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I just want to take a moment to invite our members of our audience that if you have questions about plants, about a career in botany, about Ya's research, please type those in to the chat box below. And we would love to talk about those. So you and your research group have a new grant focused on plant chemistry. Why is plant chemistry something interesting to study?
Yeah, so when you think about plants, unlike animals, they can't run away when there's danger, they can't really yell at each other, or they can't run around and finding mate. So the only way plants can do this is by making a variety of chemicals to make themselves taste bitter to herbivores and have make colorful flowers to attract pollinators and things like this, and smell. So chemicals is a really important thing to generate this amazing diversity of plants. That's why it's something that we're particularly interested in. And also from a scientific standpoint, if you're interested in why does tree grow tall, or how flower shape and leaf shape, it's actually really hard to study. But plant chemistry is something like when you have DNA sequence, you read the DNA sequence, you can immediately know what the amino acid sequence is, and that translates to enzymes. So you can take each enzyme out individually and study their function. So you can really break complex system down by small pieces to study them one by one. So from research standpoint, it's also something that's easier and more approachable to study.
Are you studying a particular plant chemicals in a particular group of plants, or are you studying them across the plant world? I guess I'm really just asking, like, what is your research for that project?
So currently we're studying plant pigments. So why plants make different types of pigment and how they evolve. Plants actually make quite a number of different pigments and they evolve back and forth. So one of our idea is that the reason plants make different pigments sometimes is not because they need different pigments. It's actually because these pigments, when making these pigments, plants make a lot of byproduct. It is these byproduct that have these function of deterring herbivores or shielding from UV lights and stuff like that. That's an underlying hidden driving force of why we see plant using these different pigments, because a lot of these pigments do make really similar colors.
Mm-hmm. Do we encounter, or do you have any good examples of plant pigments that we encounter in our daily lives that people watching might think interesting? Because I'm imagining, I don't think a lot about plant pigments. I enjoy colorful flowers and colorful plants, but we've talked before about some cool ways that plant pigments show up in our daily lives.
Yeah, think about the fruits we eat. If you have strawberry ice cream in your freezer, go look at the ingredient list. Most strawberry ice cream, the pink color, is actually from beet juice. It's actually one of the plants we're currently studying. Beet make these bright pink juice that are a lot more stable than the red pigment in strawberry. So that's why people have been just using the beet juice to fake the strawberry color. But that's some of the pigment we're studying in our project as well.
That's cool. So as part of this project, you and your students, it's funny that you had mentioned summer camp as being really influential to you. You and your students are going to come and visit the Bell summer camps as special guests this year. we were super bummed that we had to cancel because of COVID. You were going to lead some activities with that group. Can you recommend any fun activities for families to do at home that might allow them to safely play around with or examine plant chemicals in their daily lives?
So yeah, one of those really fun experiments you can do is you can get those purple cabbage in grocery store. And when you boil them, you can get these purple juice. And these purple juice, they change color with different pH. In home, you can do that easily by adding either vinegar to it. It's going to immediately turn bright red. Or you can add baking powder on it, because baking powder has a more basic property. It will turn it dark blue instead of purple. This is actually something as a kid I find out by myself without anybody telling me. I was super proud of it.
That's great that you followed your curiosity there. I can vouch it's a fun activity. I've done that with my kiddo. Are you going to be going to any interesting places to collect plants as part of that research?
So for this particular research, we are utilizing mostly living collection in botanical gardens. So these include Desert Botanical Garden in Phoenix, Arizona, which they have an amazing collection of cacti, euphorbs, and all these desert plants. I highly recommend you visit it. It's amazing, especially in February, March, April, and in our winter. It's amazing there. We are also collaborating with Cambridge Botanical Garden and Kew Botanical Garden in UK. So we're getting a lot of our plant materials from their living collection as well as their seed collection.
Fantastic. I'm still encouraging people to ask questions if you have any. So please. Now, plant chemistry isn't all that you study. You and your research group have diverse interests, and so I was wondering if you wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about what other kinds of research questions you're pursuing, or what other groups of plants that your group is actively studying.
So I've been studying the plant group euphorbs for many years. And that's also a group of desert adapted plants. And currently one of my graduate students is working on the systematics of this carnivorous plant, which is Sundews Drosera. There are 4 species of Drosera in Minnesota, and she has collected all of them. But majority of them, over 100 of them, are in Australia. So she was in Australia earlier this year, right before the COVID-19 hit. So she had to come back, but we're looking forward to go back to Australia when we're allowed to.
Is there a common name for that kind of carnivorous plant?
Sundews.
Sundews, okay.
Yeah, there's these shiny leaves, and you can have these dew-like things on their leaves. Those are the digestive enzyme they use to catch and digest insects.
And so she's trying to understand how all of these different sundew plants are related and their evolutionary history.
Related, how they from Australia go all over the world, and also they have really crazy chromosomes. They basically they change your chromosome number like crazy.
Oh.
So even within a single species, they can have different chromosome number. So this will usually be detrimental in other species, but for some reason, Sundews don't take chromosomes seriously. They do all kinds of crazy stuff on top of their carnivores.
Is there a place that you can recommend people in Minnesota? Can we go find sundew? You said that are there some sundews in Minnesota, or
there are 4 species. Most of them are in northern Minnesota. But if you go to Theodore Worth Park, there is a place called Quaking Bog, and there is a boardwalk. You can see 1 species of sundew there. You have to look carefully. They're small, yeah. But is
there a particular time of year when you're supposed to look? Because I've been to the Quaking Bog, and I've done like multiple laps in search of carnivorous plants, and I like trying to get the search image, and it could be that my timing is just bad.
It's small. It's really small. You have to really get down to the sphagnum moss. They're hidden in between the sphagnum moss.
Okay, And is there a time of year that you can best see them?
Summer.
Okay.
Yeah, because in the summer they flower. Their flower is like a foot long. You actually see the flower first before you see the leaf.
Huh, that's super cool.
Because they want to avoid killing their pollinators, so their flowers usually really far away from their leaf that actually kills the insects.
That makes sense. That's a fun fact that I learned about carnivorous plants today. I have a question kind of based on my own experience. So my background is in entomology, and although I studied a specific group of insects, my friends and family think I'm like the expert on all insects out there. And so consequently, I get a lot of text messages and emails and photos of what's this bug? Identify this for me. And sometimes I can, and sometimes I can't. I wonder if you experience that as a botanist.
Yeah, all the time.
How you help people with that. Because I think that could be useful for our audience is like, when you are on a hike and you see a weird plant, you may not have a botanist like you in their life. So what should we do?
So if it's in Minnesota, there's a really great website called Minnesota Wildflower. I think Amber can put the link there. It have great pictures and great month by month guide, or by color. You can easily find out what species it is. It's great. And then there is a phone app called iNaturalist. And you can snap a picture and they use artificial intelligence to tell you what species it is. It used to be not great, but now it's getting better and better just because there's massive number of people doing this. There's a professional botanist go in and correct the names. So the algorithm is learning. So it is getting a lot better. I love it. I go in and I upload and correct things myself as well. Then there's a Facebook group called Plant Identification. There's people that from all over the world. So basically you can literally upload a picture from India or Asia or Africa and they ID it within minutes. It's amazing. And there's professional botanists on that group as well.
Yeah. That's great. Well, that's super helpful. And we'll put those links to those websites in the comments for this event so people can see. Apparently our audience is very shy today and we haven't had any questions. So, which is a bummer, but hopefully maybe as people watch this recording later, if they have any questions, we'll monitor those and we'll share them with Ya. Probably don't send us your identification questions. We encourage you to use those apps, the iNaturalist app and some of those other resources, but we would love to hear what you're curious about with respect to our herbarium, with respect to our collection. So thank you, Ya, for being here today. I'm gonna let my colleague Amber jump in and wrap things up for us today. I learned a lot about the cool work that you're doing, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ya and Holly, for this wonderful conversation today. It was great to see the herbarium and to learn a little bit more about what's going on inside. For those of you that have joined us today, we want to thank you for joining us. A lot of these programs are made possible through generous donations from individuals just like you. And so I will be posting a link in the comments if you're able and interested in providing donations to continue this type of programming. I did also want to let you know that the Bell Museum is now reopened to the public. We have limited hours on Thursday through Sunday from 10 to 4, and we are requiring advanced reservations. So if you're ready to see some of the stuff real and in person again, please join us again at the Bell Museum. You can find out more details about getting tickets online. So thank you once again for joining us today. We hope you all have a wonderful day.